Samurai fought with swords. That's probably the image you have. But it might not be true. The warriors who actually fought left records behind. And those records tell a different story. By the end of this video, you'll understand which weapons samurai actually used on real battlefields, and how the katana came to be the symbol of the samurai. So how do we know what's true? In Japan, many documents called Shinshujo still survive. These were official battlefield reports, submitted by warriors to record their wounds and their deeds, in order to claim a reward. They are not stories written in a later age. They are raw records, left by the men who actually fought. The historian Suzuki Masaya analyzed a vast number of these reports, from the Nanbokucho era into the Sengoku period. What he found quietly overturns our image. Most wounds came from arrows, and in later periods from firearms. And as I mentioned at the start, in some situations, even thrown stones caused more wounds than swords. Wounds from swords were, in these records, very much in the minority. Of course, no single theory can explain everything, and historians still debate what these records really tell us. But this much is clear. The records left by the warriors themselves paint a very different picture. In our minds, the sword is always at the center of battle. The records say otherwise. So why is that? From the late Heian into the Kamakura period, the warrior's most important way of fighting was shooting a bow from horseback. Early warriors were closer to mounted archers than to swordsmen on foot. And it makes sense. No matter how fine your sword is, it cannot reach a distant enemy. On a battlefield, the enemy is usually far away at first, and at that distance, the bow had an overwhelming advantage. By the Sengoku period, war had become larger in scale and far more tactical. Now the spear took the leading role. Soldiers with long spears advanced together. This was not a world where a single samurai fought with one sword. The weapon that reaches the enemy first is the stronger one, and a spear is longer than a sword. In group combat, that length carried great meaning. Then firearms appeared, and they changed the very way wars were fought. The Battle of Nagashino, where Oda Nobunaga made large-scale use of them, is the most famous example. Bows, spears, firearms, formations, terrain, numbers. On a real battlefield, these things mattered far more. So was the sword useless? Of course not. When the enemy came close, when the fight turned chaotic, as a last resort, the sword was certainly used. But it was not the weapon a warrior reached for first. In most cases, it was the weapon drawn last. And in the Edo period, the meaning of the sword changed dramatically. In that peaceful age, the sword became not a battlefield weapon, but a symbol of samurai status. To wear two swords was, more than being armed, the very proof of belonging to the samurai class. It was a mark of pride. And there is one more chapter. In the Meiji era, as Japan built a modern army, ideas like Japan's ancient art of close combat and the spirit of the sword were promoted again and again. But this was not really how the past had been. It was a story Japan chose to tell, to help build a new nation. Ironically, the sword, a supporting player on the battlefield, became its most shining symbol only after the age of war had ended. And period dramas, films, anime and games spread that image even further. But the samurai of history were more complicated. At a distance, the bow. In group combat, the spear. When the times changed, the gun. When the enemy closed in, the sword. And in times of peace, the sword became a symbol of pride. So the samurai were not perfect swordsmen who lived by the blade alone. They were practical people, choosing whatever gave them the best chance to survive. Their lives were rougher, messier, and far more human than the image we hold. And that is exactly what makes the real samurai so fascinating. Compared with the perfect legend, the real samurai look far more compelling. Thanks for watching. On this channel, I'll keep sharing the real face of Japan, its history, its culture, and things that might surprise you. If you find anything in this video that differs from what you know, or spot a mistake, please let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below too. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Your knowledge makes this place more interesting. If you enjoyed it, please like this video and subscribe. Thanks again and see you next time.